Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are talking about the vow of Louis XIII and the choir of Notre Dame. We are not done with Notre Dame yet, guys, so Claudine's going to give us all the info.
There's quite a few more to come about Notre Dame.
So much to tell
in there.
A
lot of things. But the vow of Louis XIII is not only an event that happened, but it also is something that is very tied to Notre Dame. And I will tell you all about it. So Louis XIII was the son of Henry IV. And in December 1637, he had a lot of, he was going through, they had a war with the House of Habsburg. They had, after 23 years, his marriage to Anne of Austria had not produced an heir to the throne. So Louis XIII made a decision that he was going to take the crown and the state of France and dedicate it to, and put it under the protection of the Holy Virgin, Our Lady, or Notre Dame.
We appreciate her protection.
Yes, thank you very much. So it was finally published and patented on February 10th, 1638. And he said that this was going to be celebrated every year on August 15th, which is also an important holiday or date in French history as well because of Napoleon. So August 15th, they really love that date. On September 5th, 1638, Louis Dieudonné, Louis the God-given, known as Louis XIV, was born. His father, Louis XIII, died just 5 years later on May 14th, 1643. So he still had never produced this promise and vow that he did, because with this vow, he wanted to have a great piece of statuary created for Notre Dame. So in 1650, Louis XIV decided to renew this and complete this wish of his father, but it would take another 49 years until 1699 is when they finally started this.
Damn, that took a long time.
I mean, it's France. Things take forever here. But that is like a really, really long time. He instructed the architect of the king, Jules Hadam-Mansart, to create something. It was going to be a new altar and what they were going to have for the choir of Notre Dame. He designed a Baroque altar, which was built around 4 twisted columns, kind of inspired by St. Peter's in Rome, or also if you've gone into Val de Grace here in Paris, it's that kind of same idea. It had this very big, just over the top Baroque design, and it had it so it was placed in kind of the center of the choir, so pretty close to the center altar of under the transept. And so he created one in wood and stucco, so people could see it, and people were like, yeah, no, dude, not going for this one. And even the king said, no, I think it's a little too much. So unfortunately, Mansart died in 1708, but his brother-in-law, Robert de Cotte, took over, who had also succeeded him as the architect to the king. August 1708 was the year of the Jubilee of the ordination, and the canon at the time, Laporte, decided to give a very large amount of money to the church to finance the completion of the choir. And so this was the most dramatic transformation since the church had been built. This was the very first, like we basically have 3 massive renovations and restorations of the church. We have the Robert Decote that we'll tell you about, and then also Viollet-le-Duc, and then the current one that they're still working on um, for the after the fire. But this was one of the biggest ones. So the choir of the church, and so this is we're talking about the center of it. So if you're standing at, the transept in the very center of the church and you're looking straight back from the altar, that is the choir in the sanctuary. This is the most holy part of the church because this is where the liturgical what it basically is the host. So this is supposed to be like this is the body of Christ. And so at one point when this was completed in 1177, it was completely blocked off. So people couldn't go see in there. They had high walls, they had curtains that went all the way across. They had the Jubei screen that was finished in the 13th century that completely closed the front of the altar. If you're not familiar with what a Jubei screen is, it's understandable because there's only one of them left in Paris, and it's the Church of Saint Etienne du Mont at the top of the hill where one of our favorite girls, Saint Geneviève, is. But that one is very different because it's very open. But this was literally like a wall, and it was all done in stone. And so it completely closed everything off. In the 17th century, 1627, Anne of Austria decided she wanted it changed a little, so they added some carved wood elements to it, taking out some of the stone. And Robert Decote was the one who was involved in doing all of that. But once the Jubei screen was removed, it opened it up. But at the time before that, there was because the clergy would go back behind it, it was very hidden. There was people that were against the Catholic Church going, "What's going on back there? Some kind of crazy witchcraft. What are they doing? Because we can't see it." So that's why they basically, of all these churches, they were going and removing the Jubei screen because they wanted to show the people that no, we're not up to, fun and games back here. This is what we're doing, is so everybody could see it. Funny thing is now you can't go back there because it's all gated off, but you could see through the gate.
It's all fun and games.
It's all fun and games. But this was the biggest transformation since it was built. As I said, the back of it, the ribs going back along the choir were kind of falling apart. They had covered them with marble, white vein marble and gray marble and red marble from the Languedoc region. And all of that kind of stuff you still see today, which is fantastic. Most of it was completed in the spring of 1714, with the exception of the Pietà, which was done in 1723. And so all of this, so finally, under Louis XIV, the vow was delivered, and it was in place there at the back of the cathedral. And there's a few little reminders in there that survived the revolution I'll tell you about that are also dedicated to Louis XIV and the king. But as I was saying, around it, there's a Gothic wall was replaced with a grill, a ironwork grill, and it is really amazing. It's gone through a few of them. Under Decote, he had replaced the original one that was done by Francois Gaffin. Decote's one he had done by Lavoisier, and it was gorgeous. I've seen drawings of it. In the 18th century, the grill was done by Nicolas Parent, and it was topped with a cartouche decorated with 3 fleur-de-lis and a royal crown, reminding people of the splendor of Versailles. And at the center of it had the double L's of Louis XIV. Of this whole area back there, really, Viollet-le-Duc in the 19th century left most of it alone, except for the grill. He had most of that completely redone because he changed all of the ironwork in the entire cathedral in 1853. To 1864. It was single-handedly the largest ironwork order of the entire 19th century. The choir entrance at the transept was removed in 2004. The grills of the sanctuary and the chapels and the railings of the galleries still remain. During the restoration, the iron of the galleries are removed for this last restoration to be cleaned and dusted and stripped of the old layers of paint. But what I love that Viollet-le-Duc did is he's kept the cartouche of Louis XIV. So if you look up at the back, there's 2 crowns and one of the crown on either side. And there is the one that it represents Louis XIV. And then the one next to it, at the next opening, is a crown of Napoleon III. And it has N's in there because he started the project before Napoleon III was in power, but the restoration was completed under Napoleon III, and there's a little crown of the Second Empire up there too. It's pretty cool.
You guys got to look for these details when you're in there next.
You got to look at it. So, and I just did a video the weekend before last, walking through there on YouTube, which I'll put the link so you can see a lot of these things. Behind it, one of the biggest reminders of the day after the fire, almost 6 years ago now, I cannot believe it, was the Pietà, with the statue of the Pietà, with the statues of the Louis on either side, and the beautiful gold cross behind it, the Cross of Glory. This was done in 1993 by Marc Coutier, because the original cross that was there was destroyed during the Revolution, and then Viollet-le-Duc had it replaced with something else that they took down in the 1950s. This one is the cross is made of wood. It's covered in gold leaf, and it's topped with a kind of oval shape like fish, and it's covered with white gold leaf, and it's really beautiful. It's kind of, you don't really notice the top piece very often, but right below that is the Pietà. And the Pietà, I think it's the most famous Pietà, is the one, of course, that Michelangelo did in Rome. But Nicolas Cousteau had spent a lot of time in Rome, and he was a sculptor. And these three pieces were all done by the same family, but he spent time in Rome, and he was inspired by that of Michelangelo. But this Pietà that he did in 1723, Nicolas Cousteau changed it a little. So normally you see the Pietà and Jesus is laying across the lap of Mary. This one, he's kind of laying against her leg. But it is really beautiful. She has her arms open and is looking up towards the heavens. And above that, there used to be an angel of glory that hung there that was put in there in 1723. That was destroyed during the Revolution as well. It's a really beautiful piece. And one thing I love the most is that there was some holes above it for the night of the fire, and the lead melted and dripped down on it, and it dripped onto the statue and kind of went right into Christ's open hand, and then oozed out onto the Pietà. And they removed everything except for the lead that's in his hand. So it's one of the few reminders left in the church to remind us of that night in the fire. And I think it's just so symbolic and amazing. Unfortunately, it's very hard to see that. So check it out. I'll put some pictures up that I was able to zoom in and see, but it is very difficult if you don't know what's there, you're not going to know what's there.
That's why we have you to point it out to us.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love to point it out to people when I'm just in there. The next one is the statue on the right as you're looking at the Pietà of Louis XIII, and this was done by Guillaume Cousteau, brother of Nicolas, done in 1715, and it closely resembles the same pose of the painting that Champagny did of the oath and the vow of Louis XIII that Louis did have done in his lifetime, and that is now, I think it's someplace in Brittany at one of the museums. I need to go check it out. But this is, he's on his knees, and he's basically showing his crown and the scepter, giving it to, he's giving it to the Virgin Mary. On the other side of it is the statue of Louis XIV, and this was done by Antoine Cosivaux. He was their uncle. He was married to the sister of their mother, and their mother's name was Claudine.
Best name ever.
Just love that. This one was finished in 1715 as well, and it's very Christian. He's got his hand on his heart, pleading, to the Virgin. Everything was installed and finished in 1723. But during the restoration that Viollet-le-Duc did, he took all of these pieces and they were placed in the Louvre. And I have some lithographs of them actually in the Louvre, which is kind of cool. The kings both rest on pedestals with the bronze coat of arms of France. And then surrounding them are 6 bronze angels. And these bronze angels are really fantastic. I love them. They were done, from the design of Louis Antoine Vasset, who also did the altar and a lot of these pieces under Robert de Cote. And were done, each of them were done by different artists, with one artist doing two. And starting on the north side and going around, you have the first angel with the lance was by Flamin. And then you have the reed, the angel holding the reed of the flagellation, and that was done by Corneille Van Cleve. The one that's just behind to the left of the Pietà holds the inscription INRI that was above the cross. That was done by Laurent Maginet. Next to that one is the sponge soaked in vinegar by Simon Outrel. And then the last two I really love. The next one was done by Claude Poirier, and that was the angels holding the nails that held Christ on the cross. And of course, the one with the crown of thorns, because I always love the crown of thorns, is also by Van Cleve. They're really beautiful. They're all done in bronze. All the bases were different. Viollet-le-Duc had changed all of those. And each one of the pillars used to have other pieces that were done, bas reliefs of all of the different virtues. So they had the 12 virtues, but all of those have been destroyed and are gone. The altar that is there, the original altar was by Vasset as well, and it was decorated with two large angels and was done out of Egyptian marble. It was destroyed during the revolution. And then Viollet-le-Duc redid the one that is there now in 1871. And once you've seen the other ones that are in the other chapels, and when you see this one, you definitely could tell that it was Viollet-le-Duc. It's pretty cool.
So sad that so much was destroyed, though.
It was, yeah. I mean, surprisingly, the floor, the marble that I was mentioning, the marble, again, because you can't go back into the space, it is closed off. It's kind of hard to see but I'll put a picture on my website, and it's beautiful, and it has like the huge, like the cartouche of the L's of Louis. But they didn't destroy any of that stuff during the revolution, so we're lucky that those things still remain, thankfully. Also back in the choir, which is very hard to miss, are these beautiful carved wood stalls. Originally, there was 114 seats. There's now 78 of these high stalls, and the two dignitary stalls that they have. They're all, again, done by the designs of Vasset. They were built between 1710 and 1715 under Louis XIV again. And then the work was carried out by Jean Nel and Louis Marteau. They were created in oak from the Vosges region of France, which is where they got the majority of trees that they rebuilt the spire and the rafters and everything that's up in the roof, known as the forest. That's the word I was looking for. But they're beautiful. They have carved floor decor on it in the carved panels, and the panels represent the life of the Virgin from birth to coronation, also as well as allegorical figures of prudence, modesty, and sorrow. Going around, there's all the different ones: the presentation, the marriage, annunciation, visitation. They go all the way around to the Assumption. They're oval and rectangular, every other one. They alternate. Each double stall has two seats in front of it. And these are reserved only for like the canons and priests of the church. So, you and I can't go rolling up in there and be, I'll just take one of those seats. That would be a no-no.
Oh, we can't just steal a seat.
No, I wish we could. But they originally used to have smoking incense burners on the top next to the angels, all done in wood.
That would be pretty beautiful to see.
Yeah, it would be pretty amazing. But there's flowers that are also carved into the wood, specific flowers. So there's carnations, because carnation is supposed to be the flower of God, known as the little nail. I don't know, carnations. I was like, really? I think you could probably find a better flower than a carnation.
Seriously, let's make better choices.
I mean, as long as they're not one of those like horrible dyed green ones that they sell around St. Patrick's Day, at Safeway. There's sunflowers that are, of course, because of the Sun King, Louis XIV. But what I also love is lilies that symbolize purity, but jasmine, because jasmine only blooms in the month of May, and the May is the month of the Virgin.
I had no idea.
I know. Isn't that amazing? I just loved it. But the panels on the north side go around, and there's flowers, as I was mentioning. There's also a cartouche of Jesus handing the keys to Saint Peter, above with Christ on the cross. There's the four scenes. You have all the four scenes: the birth of the Virgin, presentation, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, of all the different ones, and they're really amazing. It is kind of hard to see them because it is back, but this is where you make sure to have your phone or a camera with a good zoom and take some zoom in there and get some pictures. They're all really amazing. There used to be even more seats because they call them return stalls, were also on the back of the Jubei screen, but when that was taken down and removed, that's where they lost 30 seats there as well. But they're also on the top of it. There's also some that represent the circumcision, Jesus and John the Baptist, and Jesus among the doctors, and the wedding feast of Cana. I've seen sometimes they have the circumcision, in paintings in the Louvre, and I was like, is that really what he wanted them to paint?
Yeah, seriously, was that the choice?
Is that really what he wanted as like the piece depicted in art, that's gonna, go for the end of time? But above these, there used to be these amazing tapestries that were of the life of the Virgin. They were ordered by Richelieu, Cardinal Richelieu, and paid by the Canon Michael de la Masselle in 1657. They're done from the cartons of Philippe de Champigny, Charles Pourcent, and Jacques Stella, and these are beautiful. I saw a few of them at the Gobelins back last spring. But they live in Strasbourg. They were sold off to the city of Strasbourg long ago, and they come out at the cathedral there, but only at Christmas time, sadly. When those are removed after they were sold, they were replaced with 8 large paintings. 6 of them were paid by the Canon de la Porte in 1717, created by the artists Halle, Jouvenet, Lafosse, Boulanger, and Coypel. All of them, they all disappeared but one in the revolution, and we only have one that survived, and the one by Jouvenet, and it's of the visitation and the meeting of Elizabeth with Mary when they both, she was told by the angel Gabriel, Mary was, that Elizabeth was pregnant, and Elizabeth will have her son will be John the Baptist. But sadly, it is a massive size painting. You can see it as you walk out. It's the last painting as you walk out the door. And it's pretty fantastic, but the other ones didn't survive. But I was kind of hoping they'd bring the tapestries back, but nope, they didn't. They're still in Strasbourg.
But we're lucky so much did survive.
We are very lucky. Also, on either side, at the end of that, there's 2 what they call the Episcopal chairs. They are beautiful, and they're all done in carved wood. The one on the north side is about the martyrdom of Saint Denis, of course, because it's on the north, facing the north of Saint Denis. And on the south is the miraculous healing of King Childebert the First, who was the son of Clovis, and that healing was done by the Bishop Saint-Germain of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. It's really hard to get a good view of these. Make sure if you're in there, you go when it's not during Mass. But you're gonna, again, it's one of those things, just you're gonna have to zoom in. But they are right there at the edge of the main altar under the transept. There's also an organ back there. This organ, the chair organ or the choir organ, was installed in the mid 19th century. It has 2,000 pipes and 30 stops. It's a neo-Gothic case that was done by Viollet-le-Duc. It was replaced in 1863. It suffered a lot of damage during the fire between the water and the lead soot. It's under restoration, and it will with new pipes that are needed, and it won't be finished until 2026. But the night of the fire, because you also have all the wood stalls, the whole thing with where they would sit, that because there was so much water pumped into the church, and because it is right there next to the transept, it sat there in pools and pools of water pooled up on the marble floors. But thankfully they were able to get that out quickly, and it wasn't too damaged, and they were able to replace it. But all of this stuff in there, we're very lucky. The wood of the stalls, they said the biggest problem with it was the heat, because when you're replacing and fixing wood pieces, and when you look at this and you see the tiny angel heads and wings and things, and over time those things break or fall off, so they just glue them back on. The heat of the fire and the water caused all of those to fall apart and fall off. So they did say that most of it was able to be, they just needed a really good cleaning, and then they just kind of replaced things in spots where they needed to, but it really wasn't as bad as they thought it might be. So we're very lucky.
Definitely. I mean, especially like you said, all the water damage.
Yeah, a lot of the water damage. But what I do love is there's nothing that remains back there in the choir of the medieval version of the church, even though that part was done in 1177. But I love that Viollet-le-Duc pretty much just left it alone, and kept it the way it was. And it's really beautiful because it's of that one restoration of the church that we really don't see a lot of, the first biggest restoration of the early 18th century.
Definitely. Well, guys, make sure you check out Claudine's blog for more information and keep following along. And once again, we love to hear from you. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, claudinehemingway.com.